This is the LoinersView podcast.
This is the LoinersView podcast. Hello and welcome to a very special edition of LoinersView. It's a little bit different to normal. On this edition, we are going to be interviewing a personality who, in rugby league circles, well, how can we put this? It would light up a room like a light bulb. He's a very interesting character, and for this edition, we really hope you enjoy it and be prepared to listen to one of the most inspiring stories, probably. You'll get that. So with me today, we have Jordan Walker.
Hey, Loz.
Hello. Daniel Frank.
Lozzie, all right?
Not so bad. And a star of this particular show, Mr. Paul Kilbride.
You've put me under no pressure at all there, have you?
No,
really?
I really haven't, mate. You've got a lot
Oh, God.
on this one. So welcome along, Paul. Welcome along. And this is basically, how can we do this? We're going to put you under a little bit of pressure. We're going to interview you today and let you live your tale of what happened, basically. So
that's no problem.
I mean, it's a very interesting story. We've known you for many years, so obviously we know you. A lot of people out there probably won't have heard of you or won't know your story. So in this show, we're kind of going to go through what happened and what changed your life on the rugby league field. So if you want to go back, what started your interest in playing rugby league all those years ago?
Well, I think we should actually start by saying, first things first, I'm actually disabled from the chest down after an accident playing rugby league on Mother's Day, March the 26th, 1995. So that's the real reason why I'm on here today. Like you say, I've known of you lot sort of 10 years. Yeah. And I saw that you was doing this podcast and I thought, well, there'll be something different. My story involves rugby. It involves lots of things to do with rugby. There isn't many people who have got a story like me. So, hopefully it will give some of your listeners a bit of an insight and actually maybe look at things and look at people in a different way.
Absolutely, and that's what we want to do. We want to give stories out. So take us back to that day. The day happened.
The day it happened was the final league game of the season. I was playing for Milford under 17s. A lot of the teams that I played in were good teams, were successful teams. Played with quite a lot of players who went on to play in the pro game. And this specific game, we were playing Dewsbury Moor, last league game of the season, down at the Archie Gordon, where I think Leeds Rhinos are based there now. And I'd been injured for 3 weeks leading up to the game. Now, 4 of us were injured, 3 of us had to play, and I played. I was playing hooker back in the days when hookers went in the middle of the scrum and up the ball, not packed in at loose forward and passed it, but that's a story for a different day.
Yeah.
So I was packing in at hooker in the first half, got sin-binned. So I was sin-binned, half-time comes around.
Like hookers do.
Like hookers do. Funnily enough, I'll get on to the first person I met after my accident was James Laws. So actually, there must have been something in the stars with that one.
Oh, well,
so
yeah.
yes,
I'm out of interest, Paul. What did you get sin-binned for?
I was just about to ask that.
It was for I wasn't a dirty player. I tried to be clever and get away with it. If you could say something to somebody and it wound them up and they swung a punch, you'd get the penalty. So you had to be clever. I wasn't one for starting fights, but I can't remember what I did in that game, but I was one of those horrible, mouthy, gobby, shitty little players who just like to wind up the opposition. I got sin-binned, and that led to me going off for 10 minutes. I've come back on and getting to the point of the accident now. So when was packed down in the scrums. When we played Dewsbury Moor away at their ground, you know, you get the head and feed, don't you? If they knock on, you get the head and feed. So it was our head and feed, and they was always trying to steal the head. And the referee, big fat lad he was horrible. All I remember of him, we had a lad with long hair who played on wing, and he called him JC. JC, well done, JC, well done, JC. And somebody says, why do you call him JC? He said, well, he looks like Jesus Christ, doesn't he? It was like, oh, Jesus Christ, yeah, fair enough, fair enough. So this referee was letting the head go all the time. This particular scrum, gone down, they've stole the head, and as they've pushed and we've pushed, and I've ended up flat on the floor screaming. Now, if you can imagine being laid flat on the floor, but I had the impression that my legs were stuck up in the air. So I was in the position I would be hooking. So if you can imagine being stood up with your body at a 90-degree angle, I actually thought I was on the floor with my legs in the air. So I'm screaming and screaming, and I can remember absolutely everything of the whole entire day. So I remember the physio coming on, and I remember which players were at the side of me. I remember being talked to, and I remember saying, I've never ever felt like this before. I was screaming and shouting. And Billy Dove, he come on the pitch. He was one of the older blokes. He'll be in his late 50s now, will Billy. And he put his hand on my shoulder and he says, you were in a worse state than this with me at Wembley last year. And I clicked straight out of it. And all I could remember was 2 o'clock in the morning as a 16-year-old drinking whiskey with misters and feeling absolutely shocking. And then I went, oh, it was a really good night, that, Billy. It was a great night. And I remember Bob Dunn saying I just squeezed all my toes and I'd not moved a bit. And as soon as I heard that, I started screaming and shouting. I was in agony. I was in agony. So they phoned the ambulance, and the ambulance came. The ambulance driver, if I ever saw him again, I'd slap him, because he said to me, oh, we had somebody like you last week. So I was like, snapped out of the shock of it. Well, what do you mean? He trapped a nerve. He was out with his mates at the night time. So at this point, the game was 6-6. It was the league decider. So I've said to my dad, go up to the clubhouse and get me shirt and tie for after the game. Me thinking I'd trapped a nerve. So I'm put in the ambulance, driven at about 10 mile an hour to the LGI, which I later found out, because they thought I'd done something serious, they went really, really slowly for the bumps in the road. So it took us about 35 minutes to do a 2-mile trip. Bit like Kirkstall Road nowadays.
I was going to say, it won't make much difference from now.
And for people like Jordan, cars and that up in Cumbria, you'll get all them soon, mate. It won't be too long.
Well, you'd be fucked around my way if that happened, because you'd be stuck behind tractors.
That's it. Horse and cart and all that lot. So I gets to the hospital, and I'm taken to the where is it? Into A&E, and I'm taped down at this point, and there's people coming in and out of the room, and my mum and dad have come down to the hospital, and they'd phoned me, my nana and granddad, and a couple of my friends had come down, and Leeds were playing Bradford Northern that day. That's how long ago it is, Bradford Northern. So a couple of the lads had gone to the game. So people are coming in and out to see me, and my mate comes in, Dean Buckler, and he was smiling. So I says, Dean, what are you smiling at? He says, we're not allowed to tell you. I says, what do you mean you're not allowed to tell me? He says, we can't tell you. I says, Dean, if you're any mate of mine, I says, you'll tell me. He says, well, if you start laughing, don't have a go at me. So I says, well, what? He says, bloke in next bed you can't see. He says, he's dead. He's choked to death on a corned beef sandwich. And it's amazing what you remember being in hospital. So I started chuckling. I says, well, what happened to him? He says, well, from what we can gather, He says he got up on this morning and he sat on the floor with his back to the settee with the telly on. And his missus had started cleaning up and she's vacuuming. And she's gone to go back to the living room and he won't move. So instead of nudging him and making him move, she's gone and don't rest the house, unbeknown to her that he'd choked to death on a corned beef sandwich. So she'd phoned ambulance and got him. He's laid in next bed dead to me. I'm laid there chucking away. My mate's saying, I hope nobody can hear us, blah, 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 blah. A nurse then comes in and says, right, we're taking you for an x-ray. So goes for an x-ray, has an x-ray. They then say to me, right, we need to do an MRI scan. An MRI scan is a lot deeper than an x-ray. So the MRI scan comes back and they say to me that I've done something seriously to my spine. They say that I broke my neck. Well, a lot of people associate broken necks with, like when you break an arm, you break the bone in your arm. If you break your leg, you break a bone in your leg. And you break your neck, it's not necessarily the bones that are the problem. It's your spinal cord. So I knew that I'd done something wrong to my spinal cord. They've took me up to this ward 52, and two of the lads came in after being to the Bradford Leeds game to come and pick me up from hospital. And they were there when I was told, and my family was told, that I was going to have a serious operation and it might not make me walk. And I was like, what do you mean? So I just couldn't take it all in. So I goes down to theatre about 7:45. They say to me, when you come out of theatre, you'll feel drowsy, you'll feel lousy, you won't want anything, you'll just want to sleep. Comes out of theatre at 12 o'clock. Well, I must be the absolute opposite to what they said, because gets back on the ward, and on the ward 10 minutes, and I buzz the nurses. The nurse comes running over. What's up? Now, bear in mind, I'm flat on my back. They've done an operation. I'd actually snapped my spinal cord. So you snap your spinal cord, and they actually clamped it with two metal clamps back together again, which meant I had to be flat on my back for 6 or 7 weeks. So I've buzzed the nurses. The nurses run over. She goes, what is it, Paul? What is it? You okay? I went, yeah, I'm bored. She says, pardon? She says, yeah, I'm bored. She says, what do you mean you're bored? You've just had 4 hours worth of surgery. I went, I'm wide awake. Can you move my bed, Nate, to nurse's station so I can speak to you lot? So the nurse moved my bed, and I'm laid in bed from 12:30 till 5:30 with nurses sat round me talking about rugby league. One of the nurses, I'm sure I'll be able to get away with saying this now, was seeing James Lowes at the time. And because I was smacked off my tits on morphine, I'm saying, he's a typical rugby lad. He'll be doing this, that, and other with whoever behind your back. He doesn't like you. And I was putting them all in the place, and gets to about 5 o'clock in the morning. They've upped me morphine. I says, I'm really, really hungry. Well, what do you mean you're hungry? I says, I'm starving. I says, look, can one of you go to Tariq's and get me a curry? And you what? I says, can you go to Tariq's and get... Where's Tariq's? I says, it's in Edinburgh. Just ask Bobby. Tell him it's Paul. He'll know who you are, blah, blah. Well, I'd only met Bobby once or twice. He wouldn't remember me if I came in from bloody Adam. So the nurse went and got me a slice of brown toast. So gets this slice of brown toast. He eats it. I says, right. I says, I'm tired now. I'd like you all to leave me. This is about 5:30 in the morning. I've had these nurses sat round my bed. I sleeps for about half an hour. I can remember the first 2 songs I heard after my accident, because I put the hospital radio in. The first one was Back for Good by Take That, and that was released on that day. And the second one was an absolutely beautiful song called As I Lay Me by Sophie B. Hawkins. And it's a brilliant, brilliant song. So then I was in the LGI for a week. I got transferred to Pinderfields. I was in Pinderfields for 6 or 7 months. I'm sure we'll get on to Pinderfields next. So if you've got any questions you want to ask me about any of that, feel free. If you want to ask about, I didn't get into rugby till I was 11 years old. So I'll tell you what, I'll throw it back to you because I've just spoke for a good 10, 15 minutes there. So sorry for that.
You've pretty much there's so many questions I was going to ask you. You've actually answered them without me asking them. So fair play to you.
I've just got a question, Killer.
Bloody hell, you've aged, Dan. I remember when you used to have ginger hair like Steve Davis.
It was never ginger. It was strawberry blonde. So we'll just get that straight.
Yeah, and I go running every day. Go on, what's your question?
I've got a question, mate. You said something there, and I don't want to turn this to like upset you or like that. So if I do, I don't want to answer.
No.
Say, piss
right,
off,
go on.
But probably not this question. But do you have any anger, not just in how it happened against people pushing and whatever, but not just that. The fact that you mentioned there that there were four of you were injured and 3 of you had to play.
Yeah.
Now, is that a state of the game back then? Because it's still the same now. We struggle to get kids coming to play. We struggle to, we don't have that strength in depth, do we? We don't have them numbers sat on the sideline.
Back then in Leeds, you had basically Milford, East Leeds, and Stanningley. You had the Unslip Boys Club, and that was fundamentally it for the teams in Leeds. Now, we didn't have a big squad. We was actually, the team I played in, we was actually under 18, so I was classed as a first year. So we actually had I was an under 17, and we had some under 18s playing. Do I resent the way it happened? I resent the fact that the referee let things go and let things go on without actually stopping it. But you lads watch rugby week in, week out. You'll see things and you think, I wish referees would pick up on that. I wish referees would stop that. What's it going to take for that to change? As I've said before, not in this tonight, but there isn't many of us who have had an accident like this playing rugby league. So resenting how it happened, resenting, you look back, things like this didn't exist then. The internet was in its infancy. There was no Facebook and Twitter. So people got to know through word of mouth. People got to know through landlines, be at your phone for 6 o'clock on a Tuesday night, and I'll ring you because it's cheap rate after 6 o'clock. So a lot of things were done so differently then to how they are now. So does that answer your question, part of your question?
Yeah, I just wondered, and obviously, it does. I just can't imagine, obviously what you went through, and you're the one that went through it, but also your family as well, and like your mum and dad. I've got a little boy now, and I just can't even start to imagine what they must have gone through. I just don't know how I'd feel if my relative or, he's not even meant to be playing, he's injured. And so you're playing someone that's struggling as it is. And then
looking back, it's something I've spoke about at length before. I'd had the accident and people would be coming in to see me and nobody would dare speak about the outside world. So it was like everybody was coming in treading on eggshells. So the blocking you from the outside world, they're scared to say what's going on. And you're there and all you're wanting is a bit of normality of a 17-year-old lad. What are your mates up to? Where are your mates going? What's going on at school? And people it was as though they were scared to tell me things, what were going on, for fear of me not being able to do them. That was the way I looked at it. Now, as for family and friends, I'm the one who had the accident, and it's like anything else. If you have a death in the family, it's that person dies, or that person has the accident, that person's in hospital, that person's laid there in the hospital, you don't see how everybody else reacts. You don't see how your teammates react. You don't see how your teammates go out for the next game. You don't see how your little brother reacts. You don't see how his friends react. So back then, a bit like today, there was very, very little mental health. You know, one of my great bugbears is, let's get everybody talking, let's get everybody speaking, let's cure this mental health stigma. Yeah, but let's have enough people there to pick up the pieces when people have to speak and when people want to speak. Because I guarantee if you've got 4 people who go to the doctor's surgery tomorrow morning and say, I'm depressed, I need to speak, there's no one there for them to speak to. They get a 10-minute appointment. Back then, you have a spinal injury at 17, you're in hospital 6-7 months. Not once was I questioned about my mental health. Not once was I taken aside to see how I was coping physically, let alone mentally. Sorry, mentally, let alone physically. My family were never questioned. And it's something which hopefully things have changed, and things, you know, with the advent of social media and the advent of more and more people getting involved, you know, hopefully there are people and there is people for the mental health when something goes wrong, not just with rugby players, with society in general.
Yeah.
That was one of the questions that I meant to ask you, actually, Paul, because one of the things I've always admired about you since I've known you, really, is after everything that's happened, you do manage to have quite a unique outlook on life, and you manage to stay positive and still enjoy the things that you enjoy, really. I mean, one of the things I always remember that cracked me up about when me and you went for a day out before is when we went to the White Rose, and we went into the one of the shoe shops in the White Rose, and you know what I'm going to say, don't you?
Yeah.
So we went into there, and the lass comes up to you and goes, how are you today, Paul? And how are you today, sir? And you went, still fucking crippled. And she just looked at you as if to say, what am I meant to do there? But that's just your sense of humour.
In public. I mean, there's so many stories where I liked humour. I've always liked humour. You know, we're like the similar comedians, John, and we speak a fair bit on the phone, and we do have a similar type of humour. But humour is a great way of covering things up. You know, I use social media. I didn't go on Facebook for years and years and years. Now, you know, I've actually, for the last 16 months, I've been stuck in the house. I haven't been out for the past, since April last year on my niece's birthday. I have been stuck on my bed for the last 2 months due to ongoing issues. And yeah, I have bad days, but like you say, humour, you have to make the best of bad situations. You have to, you know, everybody needs the clown, everybody needs the joke, everybody needs that somebody to break the ice. And you know, some of the stories I could tell you, which we might touch upon later, I don't know. You know, I remember winding Harry Gratian and Barry McDermott up at Wembley. I remember getting drunk with Johnny Vegas at Wembley. That is a good story. I actually earned 200 quid for charity that night just by being drunk with Johnny Vegas in the Great Hall at Wembley. But yeah, you've got to use humour, and we live in a world where far too many people are offended for things which are not directed at them and are not, you know, and not aimed at them. For me, we are a bit of a snowflake society. You can be offended at something directed at me. I could find it absolutely hilarious, but you could be offended. And I think we live in a world where we need to be, if something's directed at us, yeah, be offended. If you go see a comedian and somebody's being funny and they're not being, you know, they're not being hurtful, you've gone to see a comedian. I know we're going off what I said in the day and everything, and I know that I won't have said fucking because I don't swear in public. Honest.
No, we never heard you swear. Yeah, it's fine.
No.
We can always put bleep over it. We'll be fine.
But you do, and lots of people use humour, and You know, it's one of those things.
Another question I've got, so like, if you go to like a rugby game, do you see people react differently to you, sort of thing, or in the actual environment, or do you just not notice it? Do you think?
How do you mean? What do you mean?
Because like
how
obviously,
do they react?
Like you say, for instance, you in a wheelchair. I mean, this might be a case for like many, disabled people. But do you get people ever asking about your injury, or do people kind of shy away from it?
No. Well, again, this is it's not necessarily to do with my injury. It's to do with society in general. Obviously, just my opinion. I think a lot of adults don't ask questions, not because they're scared of asking the question. They're scared of the response they might get. And they might be put in a position where they feel as though they're stuck, or they might get a response which they don't like. It might put them in a position where they can't answer. Children will ask whatever they want. Children are brilliant because there's no airs or graces with them. Why can't you walk, mister? Oh, well, I had an accident, blah, 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 blah. So, like I was telling you the other day on the phone, that I worked with Leroy Rivette in schools, and we'd go into the classrooms. Nobody in this room is in charge. We're all equal. We're all level. I can't remember the question you asked me now. I've gone tangenting off again there.
No, it's fine. Carry on. I was going to say carry on.
What did you ask me?
What was you trying to say, Loz, about like? But I think it's a societal thing as well, not just.
Yeah. Do you notice the different? Do you notice people treating you different?
Yeah. No. Because a lot of people I'm friends with now, I've met since my accident. And you lads probably might find something different. You've not got the same friends you had who you went to school with. You'll have met different people through different stages of your life, and you'll be friends with different people from different areas, different backgrounds, different whatever. I'm still in touch with a few people I went to school with and a few people who I played rugby with. But a lot of my friends now are people I've met since my accident, people who have only known me as Paul being disabled. And, I've been disabled now for over 25 years. I was able-bodied for 17 years. Now, it was hard at first after my accident going back to the rugby club and back out with my mates, because you just don't come home. You just don't get up and come home when you have a spinal injury. You're flat on your back for 6 weeks. They then get you up for a couple of hours, or they start getting you up for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. So eventually you're allowed home on a weekend. This might be 3-4 months into your recovery. So you come home for a weekend. So you can imagine a 17-year-old lad coming home on a Friday afternoon, what I did all weekend. My mum and dad wanted to wrap me in cotton wool. I was out with the lads Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Got taken back to hospital on the Monday morning, hung over in the back of an ambulance. Best weekend of my life, as it was then. And, you get back to hospital. What have you done this weekend? I've been out drinking all weekend, nurse. Well, should you have done that? Should I have not done it? I'm 17. You want me to get better? You're preparing me for a normal way of life when I leave hospital. My mates like a drink. I'm going to do what mates are going to do.
You go with it, don't you?
Simple, yeah. I mean, I remember 5-6 months down the line in Pinderfields, a nurse pulling me in, saying, while you're here, you're supposed to be doing rehab, not drinking. One of the lads had ordered 5 crates of lager to be delivered from Clark's Brewery, which was about a mile from Pinderfields. We've got back into the hospital ward Monday morning, and he's had these crates delivered. I says, why have you got 5 crates of lager? And he went, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I went, why is the one? He says, well, what am I going to do by myself at weekend? So, all right, fair enough. So we used to get, some stories I could tell you what we used to do in hospital. We used to get drunk. And the time where I got pulled in to the matron or whatever it was back then, right, you're drinking, you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing, blah, 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 blah. I says, am I getting to the gym on a morning at the right time? Yes. Am I doing all the program that I've been given to do? Yes. If I wasn't doing that, you would have every reason in the book. Let's just get to the crux of it. Ask me what you want to ask me. Was you and Rod being disabled ghosts at midnight last night on this ward? And me and Rod had done a bottle of Archers, right? And gone into where all the bed linen is and everything. We got 2 white sheets, you know, the bed sheets, the white bed sheets. We cut eye holes out of them. We put them over us, and we'd gone round the ward, opening people's curtains. These people were having the doctors and nurses off because they were liars. They were in gym saying they couldn't move and couldn't do this and couldn't do that. Well, you have somebody who looks like a disabled ghost open your curtain at midnight, and you're going to sit all upright in bleeding bed. All this, I can't move this, I can't move that. So me and Rod got pulled in, and I got the brunt of the blame for being 17 years old, even though I was going to the gym every morning. But that's the sort. And we weren't allowed visitors from 8 o'clock. You was in the gym from 9 o'clock till 4 o'clock. Yeah, you got an hour's break for lunch and 2 half-hour breaks. But the night staff didn't want you doing anything. We used to push ourselves to the pub if we had no visitors. But next to it was the hospital, the prison training camp, and then the pub. So the prison training officers, we used to get them to push us back to hospital, and then they'd go back to their. We had it all off to a T. It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant.
They wouldn't let you do that now, would they?
We could smoke on the ward. You could smoke on the ward. Can you imagine any of that? We used to get we used to have deliveries to the ward. My mate used to get Indian deliveries, Bombay Balti, and we used because there was the ward, and then there was like a balcony, and there was 4 beds on the balcony, and there was my bed and 3 other lads, and we sort of, if you smoked, that's where you went for a cigarette. So there used to be a lad from Oldham who used to come down and try and have a cigarette, and we wouldn't let him on our bit because we were from Oldham. So you can fuck off, go down to the other side. You're not allowed to smoke on that bit. Well, go outside and open the door. You're from Oldham, piss off. And he'd had his accident playing rugby league. John Power, he were called. So yeah, it were mad. Some of the things we did, but I did everything I was told to do, all my rehab and everything. All the times I had to be in the gym, I did it all. I learnt to cook in hospital. You know, everything that they put to me, because if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you're in there longer.
Yeah, exactly. And
you're stuck in there longer. And it's not a nice place to be. So in back to all the humour thing, that's where a lot of the humour comes from. I remember one of the first days I'd been getting up for, I think I'd been getting up for a couple of weeks, and you have named nurses. And my named nurse was called Lindsay, and she was about 22. I was 17 at the time. And she took me to Meadowhall. And Lindsay thought she could wind people up. I'm going to wind you up. I'm going to wind. I says, Lindsay, you won't. You won't beat me. You won't beat me. So we're in some shop, and she starts holding all underwear up. Oh, Paul, these'll suit you. These'll suit you. You know, laughing, doing that girly laugh. So I thought, right, I'll get you. So we're in House of Fraser. And I said, I'm just going to go look at that shirt over there. So I've gone off by myself. And I sat where there were quite a lot of people. So she's come up behind me to start pushing me. And I've just started going, you're not my nurse. You're not my nurse. Get off me. Get off me. I am his nurse. I am his. You're not. You're a liar. You're a liar. And she did not know where to put us. And I kept this going, honestly. And when we got, she took me outside and I was, and she went, you little bastard, you bastard. I went, Lindsay, I told you would not embarrass me and I would beat you. And I says, I think I've just proved a point that I have beat you.
Okay, well, I could say
she never ever took me shopping again.
No wonder after doing that. Well, Killer, we're just going to have a little break. And then we'll come straight back and we'll hear some more stories from you.
All right, sound. Well, what we'll do, I'll tell you about rehab and stuff like that.
Hello, and welcome back to the second part of this week's LoinersView special, where Paul Kilbride is with us. Carry on, Paul.
Yeah, just going back to something we were speaking about earlier about, he says how I think people react to me now and everything. One of the things that I realised quite quickly after my accident is that a lot of people just think that you've broke your legs. They see you in a wheelchair and your legs don't work, which fundamentally is the case, yeah, but there's so many other things which come with the spinal injury. I've got a catheter for my bladder, which I had an operation I've got a hole in my bladder, in my belly, which goes to my bladder, and I've got what they call a suprapubic catheter. I have to have enemas for my bowels and take lots of concoctions to get my bowels to work. I have to be very, very careful of my skin. One of the other things, I'll throw a question to you three. What's the difference between feeling and sensation?
Is a sensation? Is it the time
Sensation to do
difference?
with your nerves?
No. What was that about? A time difference? Somebody just said, damn it.
No, that would be
No. Feeling is, if somebody was to pour water on me, I would know there was pouring water because I had the sensation of water being poured on me. I wouldn't know if you was pouring boiling hot water on me or freezing cold water. So, for instance, you could have, I lit a cigarette. I'm sorry, I didn't actually light a cigarette. For the first time in ages, I lit a lighter the other day, and I put the lighter on my knee, and the lighter hadn't gone out properly. And it actually burnt through my trousers, and my leg started spasming. And my leg was spasming, and I'm thinking, what's going on? I looked down, and I saw it, and I thought, oh, that candle smells nice, because the candle was still in my vision. And then it all kicked in, and I couldn't feel the burning, but I knew something. So and these are things which you wouldn't know unless you spoke to somebody with a spinal injury. As bad as people, we all go through times thinking, oh, my life's not as bad as their life. Even when you've got a spinal injury, there was a girl who I was in hospital with, and when I went to Pinderfields after a week, she had been in bed for 2 years. She was called Emma Rhodes. She was from Harrogate, and Mum and Dad were doctors in Saudi Arabia, dentists in Saudi Arabia, absolutely minted up to the eyeballs. She'd been stuck in bed for 2 years. She dived into the sea in Saudi Arabia, and the tide went out as she dived in and landed on coral, and she was paralysed from her neck down. She basically broke what they'd call like the hangman break. She couldn't move anything. And again, funny story with it was she had a sister, and all the parents of all the people on the ward. She was 2 years older than me. All the parents get to know each other before any of the patients do. Because if you're stuck in bed rest, your mum comes in to see you. Oh, so-and-so's mum's got this lovely coat on. Well, who's so-and-so? Never mind who's so-and-so's mum. So this Emma's sister, she says, oh, I had a white Marks and Spencer's jumper. Oh, Emma says she really, really likes your jumper. All right, okay. I said, well, I'll tell you what. Since the day she gets out of bed, I'll buy her the same jumper, thinking she's been in bed 2 years. Jordan, you know that I'm good with bets, thinking I'm on a dead set here. She was out of bed within a week. So I've ended up speaking to her. So I sent my mum to Marks and Spencer's with 40 quid to buy a jumper. Kept to my word, and my mum went and gave her the jumper and says, that's from Paul. Emma obviously couldn't move a thing, and she had to get her sister to take the jumper, and she started crying. And I used to go sit next to Emma's bed on a night time. When I was up properly, Emma couldn't move anything. And you know how people say they'll see something and it'll bring a smile to the face? Emma was told she couldn't move anything, and she literally couldn't. I used to sit next to her bed, right? I used to fill a glass up with Archers and lemonade, and I used to put a straw in it, and I used to hold the glass next to her bed so she could move her head and sip the straw. So this one night we were watching. You remember Brian Conley? It's a Puppet.
Yeah.
ITV. We were watching that, and that's why we only had 4 channels back in there. 2 years before Channel 5 and Spice Girls. And this night, me and Emma got really, really drunk. And I was saying to her, look, see if you can turn TV off with your little finger. She had right slight movement in her little finger. And she turned the telly off with her little finger. And I still tell this story to this day when I'm describing them. I have never, ever seen anybody with as broad a smile for doing something when she was told she couldn't do anything. And, you look at people, I look at myself and I look at other people and I think, I've never come out and say it and say, you lot moaning about your lives. I'd swap my life for yours, because one of the things that I've learned is it doesn't matter what you're going through. If it's bad enough to make you feel like shit, it's big enough to be a problem. And a lot of people will go, oh, it's only small, it's only minor. No, it's causing you a problem. Whether you're in a wheelchair, whether you're able-bodied, whether you're Danny Frank, whether you're Paul Sculthorpe, everybody has problems. Everybody has issues. And, sometimes we've got to break the stigma so people feel comfortable approaching people and approaching different people and how they look, and not be judgmental. A right quick story, 2013, the year after the London Paralympics, I played on that for a while. I was at the Doncaster Ledger. You've got to do it in a wheelchair. You said humour's a good way of coping with things. Oh, well, that me. So I met the Ledger Legends, 125 quid a ticket, Doncaster races. Sat with Princess Anne, I think it was the year. She was the special guest. And we had one of her special agents on his table, or as I called him, 008, which he didn't seem to like. So I want to go outside for a cig. So you're on tables of 12. So the table next to us, they were all, no one would move. So I said, excuse me. I says, do you know what? I says, for fuck's sake. I says, this time last year, I was representing this country. Now I can't even get outside to go for a cigarette. Well, the whole lot of them, they jumped up, they moved the chairs, this, that, and the other. Can I help you through? I said, I'm all right, I can get myself through. Wheels myself off, chuckling away. Comes back, so they all gets up to move, apart from one. And he goes, I ain't moving. I says, well, you don't have to move, I'll go a long way around. He says, why I don't want to move? I like, go on. He says, if you were in Paralympics, what the fuck were you doing going for a cigarette? I says, never said I were any good, and never said I won a fucking medal. But you all bought into it. You all felt guilty because of the lad in the wheelchair. Point proved. And they went, yeah, you've done us.
So come on then, how did you end up on the lash with Johnny Vegas?
Well, that was the year when the benevolent fund. The benevolent fund started. You lot did some fundraising for it after. The lad who played for Wakefield,
Leon Walker.
Walker. After Leon Walker died, and the benevolent fund was set up a couple of years before that, and we used to get invited to Wembley. Well, they still do. I don't go. As you know, I don't like the game now. I don't like the way the game's played. I think the game's been sanitised, but that's a different story. So there was about
podcast special on itself, Paul.
Yeah, that could be another edition now. We could
bring me back on Thursday. So there's about 20 of us who've had accidents from all over the north of England. And the benevolent fund was set up because of a lad who was playing for London Broncos called Matt King. And Matt King had a really, really bad accident, and higher up than me, a lot less movement than me. And the benevolent fund was set up because Matt was connected to the London Broncos. So we all get invited to Wembley, so we all can take friends and family. So the first year, everybody took the mates with them. And I think that was the year. I've been twice. And we get well looked after. We get put up in a nice hotel, and the only thing we have to pay for is his beer money. So we're all sat there this one Friday night, and a couple of the lads from Hull, you know who you look like? I says, who do I look like? Like, you look like Johnny Vegas. So everybody starts laughing. So they were all taking piss and that, and and I was like, no, you can't take me, can't me? I'm in a wheelchair, which don't work when you're with a load of lads in wheelchairs and a load of lads from fucking Hull who, let's be right about it. Ever see anybody from Hull on Countdown? That's a different story altogether. 5, 9, you couldn't spell those bleeding words, so you'll never see anybody from Hull on Countdown. That's my dig at Hull. So everybody from Hull calling me Johnny Vegas's love child. So the day after, I think it was the St Helens Catalan game. So we'll be 2008, 9, something like that.
Yeah,
7.
it was the first game at the new Wembley, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah. So we're there. So we're all having a laugh and a nobble. Who happens to be in the Great Hall where we are, really, really posh bit, but Johnny Vegas. So the talk goes, your father's over there. You what? Your father, you're his love child. That's what you on about, you lot. Now, bear in mind, we've been on drink all day. So, next thing, I'm going to go get him. He says, go on then, because it's always me who has to go talk to bleeding celebrities. Who were first? Well, Kirsty Gallagher's over there. Go speak to Kirsty Gallagher. She's got a gobbler as well as Kirsty Gallagher, I'll have you know. So, the next thing, Johnny Vegas has come over. And Johnny Vegas is, to be bluntly, steaming. So, we ends up... Yeah. I didn't know he liked to drink.
I didn't know. Exactly.
Yeah. It only takes him one to get drunk, though. It's usually his 17th, but it's only the one that it takes him to get drunk. So I tells him I'm doing some fundraising for the Steve Prescott Foundation. So this is long before he's got with the Steve Prescott Foundation. So I says, oh, Johnny, I'm doing this sponsored walk and getting pushed here, there, and everywhere. I says, all these people who are coming up to you, getting autographs, can we say to them, we'll charge them? So they have to pay me for your autograph. He said, that's a fucking great idea. Let's get drinks. I said, well, don't worry about it. Ours are all free. So we get some more wine and that. So people are coming up to Johnny Vegas, paying me for his autograph. Johnny Vegas is getting more and more drunk. It went from him signing his autograph to him saying, don't forget to tell your mum and dad Peter Kay were at Wembley and he were arsehole. He then signed somebody's belly with a big arrow saying, to the monster. And the arrow was pointing down, not up. And he charged the bloke 20 quid for. I earned over 200 quid sitting with Johnny Vegas, getting absolutely smashed while being called his love child. And it just was absolutely brilliant. And it was, that was, I think, the second year we'd been at Wembley. The first year we was at Wembley with the Benevolent Fund. Tim Adams had give us a tip for a horse. And Martin Afire was the guest speaker in the Great Hall. Well, I tell you, no disrespect to Martin Afire, super fast at rugby. Fuck me, he's boring at speaking. Oh, God, he is like a talking Mogadon, I swear to God. So we've all backed this horse round this table. So we've got the commentary on the mobile phone, me and our kid under the table. And the horse is leading. Well, we've had a bet on this to, win a couple of grand. So we're cheering this horse on, and it's happening at the same time as Martin Afire is coming towards the end of his talk. So we absolutely explode when this horse wins the race at 12-1. Martin Afire starts waving, clapping, thinking we're cheering him on. Martin, we couldn't give a shit about your talk, mate. Yeah, you scored a couple of good tries, and I were there when you got 10 against Leeds, but we've just had it away with a 12-1 tip. Get back in your box, Martin.
Killer's tips, can't beat them, can you? So you can't beat a Paul Kilbride horse tip.
Well, you can if you hit it hard enough with whip.
I mean, has there been any other celebrities that you've kind of got drunk with then? Or you've got drunk?
Well, when I was when, as a lot of people might know, I did quite a bit with the Steve Prescott Foundation in their very early days, and used to get to go to a few do's with them. In fact, if a lot of the viewers want to Google, YouTube, the Rumble at Bolton, we did a boxing event at Bolton, and we had the likes of Gary Schofield against Alan Hunt, and a lot of the Kiwis took part. Asini Faimilo, who was the other? And
what unit?
It was awesome. And I ended up that night we got put up in the hotel. There was guests of honour, me, Pete Stevenson, and somebody else. Pete was from Hull, and we'd gone over with Steve Ball. Steve Ball had left, so we'd been put up in a hotel, and I ended up with, and he's an absolutely brilliant book, the best player never to play for Great Britain, Tommy Martin, and I ended up getting drunk with Tommy Martin that night after hours, and it was good. I mean, there'll be a lot of players who I grew up with who you might have heard of who I got drunk with, because like I said, I mean, when did you all start watching Leeds?
93.
2014.
That's definitely a lie.
Yeah. Okie dokie.
1991 killer. I was 7.
Do you remember? Because I had an accident in '95, so it was just before the academy started. So my best friend at school was Gavin Brown, who signed for Leeds. Do you remember Gavin playing at the game?
Yeah.
So I used to go. I was introduced to Gavin's two friends, who he became really good friends with when he was at Leeds, was Ricky Wright and Chris Smith. Chris Smith, not the ex little scrawny little winger for Castle. Chris Smith, who played no games for Leeds, but is more famous for having a child with Miss Danny Minogue.
I thought you meant the cast one.
So I knew Chris,
if I remember right.
That's yeah. Chris Smith and Ricky Wright, and so I'd done a lot of drinking with Chris and Ricky. There was another player who, from my childhood, if a lot of my mates are listening now, they're probably shitting themselves thinking, I hope he don't mention my name.
Yeah.
I hope he don't mention my name, like Robert Roberts, Two Bobs, who's had more clubs than whatever. He I could tell some tales about him, but you know, Robert sorted himself out and doing well. But Robert, there was a lad who, when I was younger, I'm actually at 17, but I played quite a lot of rep rugby at like under 13s. I started playing rugby at 11. And when I was under 13s, we played, I played for Yorkshire and Yorkshire and Humberside. So we played against the likes of Scully, and Adi Gardner had a brother who was head and shoulders the best gardener in that family. Paul Gardner, who were called. And, you know, so we played with a lot of players. And there was the lad for Yorkshire called Lorenzo Lainez Marquez Loz.
He played at Bramley, didn't he?
He went to Bramley, because this lad couldn't read or write, right? But he was the hardest player I played against. He was the dirtiest player I played against. He was the nastiest player I played against. He was the evilest player I played against. He's done more drugs probably than anybody else. He's drunk more than anybody else bar Two Bobs. But
allegedly,
yeah, we've got to say allegedly.
But as a person and as somebody, as a human being, he's absolutely the salt of the earth. The same as Two Bobs, absolutely salt of the earth.
Do you think that's quite common in our sport? I think, you know, we have the most craziest, the most stupidest. You know, you'd say, "Oh, the utter barmy," but do you know what? We're the salt of the earth.
I haven't spoken. I mean, Two Bobs could 3 years ago. I could not hear from him for 2 years, and he'd phone me up. Killer, it's Two Bobs. Hey up, Rob. How are you doing? I'm in your local pub. Get round here now. Oh, Robert, no. I've come all this way to see you. Robert, I haven't seen you for 2 years. I'll see you in 20 minutes then. And, I'd get rid
You were
of
there.
I'd
You were
rid
there
of him.
within 15.
I'd get rid of him 2 days later. My dad died a few months back, and within 5 minutes of me putting something on Facebook, he'd phone me up with Robert, and it was like we'd spoke yesterday. Whenever he used to phone me up from Hull, it'd always be with Loz, and Loz would always speak to me. And all the lads who I worked with on the Steve Prescott Foundation, you get a cause, you get the right people doing the right things. Nobody wants for out, nobody asks for out, and they are the salt of the earth. One of the things that me and Robert didn't realise, and he was probably the first person who I spoke to about my accident, who I played with, and this was probably about 10, 12 years after my accident, so probably about 10, 12 years ago. And I was living at Horsforth at the time, and we were speaking about how my accident affected him and how his outlook. And I'd never sat with anybody and got their perspective. I'd always looked at it from my point of view. And like I said earlier, nobody ever questioned my brother or my mum and dad. So it was like a whole new way of thinking about actually looking at different sides of coins, and I do that in all aspects of my life now. I wouldn't have been able to do what I did with Leroy, going into the schools with kids, unless I could look at both sides of the coin. And as I've got older, I wish I'd have known what I know now 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago.
I was just gonna. Sorry, I wanted. Really sorry to interrupt there, Killer, but I wanted to ask you a question. I've got it wrote down here, so I'm not lying to you.
Who's wrote it down for you? Your lass or your son?
Yeah, she's just done it before putting Oliver to bed.
She put finger spaces. Has she done it phonetically? Why did the cat sit on the mat?
So,
sorry, I'm thinking out loud.
She's wrote, what would you say to a young Paul Kilbride? So not, these shitty questions what you normally get to say. What would you say to a kid that's just had an accident similar to yours? But
yeah.
No, what would you say to a young Paul Kilbride? So if you were looking
I'm not dead yet. If I was to give myself advice, don't change for anybody. Yeah. Don't change for anybody. Stay true to yourself, and stand. Even if it takes you a while to understand it, your beliefs are your beliefs. Nobody can change your point of view. There might be 100 people in a room. You might be one of 10 people who give the answer no. 90 of those people might give the answer yes. Doesn't mean that you're wrong saying no. Just means your voice isn't as loud as the other 90. So my advice to if I was to look at myself as, say, somebody who is 10 years old, 12 years old, if I was speaking to me as, I would give the advice that I give to the children, be yourself. You might not be the cleverest. You might not have all the GCSEs, A-levels or whatever. Your please and thank yous. You can hold a conversation. Hopefully that will open as many doors for you as what being the cleverest kid in the class will be. The cleverest kid in the class doesn't always have the brightest intellect, doesn't always have the conversation, doesn't always have the patter, doesn't always have the jokes, can't adapt to situations. But that would be the advice I would give myself.
Yeah.
And don't play rugby because it's a dangerous sport. You might get injured.
I'm being serious there.
You what? I heard two things then. I heard something about goals galore and I heard something about seriously. I know, but seriously was Phil Collins for some of the older listeners. That was Danny.
I said stop putting football coupons on a Saturday as well.
That's bad. That's muzzle, is that? That just, yeah. There's more chance meeting somebody called Laura and Laura picking a coupon. I don't know why I picked the name Laura. Yeah. Gambling's bad. It should be. It's as bad as drugs and drinking, and children shouldn't do it. For all the children listening, horses are all right. Football coupons don't do it.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It just brings heartache. That's all it does.
It does.
But I mean, as daft as it sounds, with when was the first rugby game that you watched after your accident?
Well, believe it or not, the first 2 afternoons I got out of hospital, one was a Sunday afternoon, and my brother's team was in a final at Featherstone. So I was still in hospital. I'd not been home for the weekend, and I went to Featherstone to watch our Marks team, Milford under 12s or 13s of the day then. And I went to watch them beat New Earswick in a final, I think. And my team was in a final that afternoon. Because I was there, I got asked to present the trophies, and I've never felt as awful doing something in my life. Give me a microphone and a room full of people, and I'm absolutely fine. It's second nature. But that day was just horrible. But the day after, my own team was in a final at Featherstone on the night time. So my dad came over to pick me up. So he picks me up at 7. He says, we'll have me back for 10 o'clock. And Gavin Brown had signed for Leeds then. So me and Gavin sat upstairs at Featherstone in the bar over the corner flag, the far corner flag.
Great view there.
So we were just drinking. We was drinking Budweiser. Well, for all those who don't know what a catheter is a tube that goes in your bladder and is connected to a bag. Because obviously you're in a wheelchair, you can't get to the toilet. So as you're drinking and the bag fills up, it fills up with your urine. So I'd said to Gavin, look, this bag's filling up, we've got to empty it. So we empty it into an empty bottle. Gavin goes and empties them down the toilet. Well, we thought he'd emptied them all down the toilet. So all the lads have come back in and they're all pleased to see me and everything. And one lad, and I'm going to mention him by name, James Bunny, is coming, and it very much like his dad, be a burglar. And he's seen a bottle on the table, and he's picked it up, and both me and Gavin have cottoned on. And we sort of looked at each other and went, I'm not saying out. And we watched him have a sip of it, and him spit it all over it. Well, it was the first time in months that I'd actually proper laughed. It was the first time that I'd actually felt part of being with my mates again, and part of being a lad, sort of thing. Well, for the next 2 years, that was my party piece. Euro 96 Headingley, with all those student beer burglars, I was in my element. And I don't think anybody who I went out with even took a bottle to the toilet. You know what? Students, no disrespect to anybody who's a student, but you're a dredge on society, aren't you, really? Come on. Jordan, you were a student. I don't even know why I'm friends with you, Jordan. Maybe because I think I'm friends with you because my life is better than yours because I've not been a student. You were a student.
Harsh,
but, yeah. I've gone completely off tangent now, haven't I? Yet again.
We've got a few minutes to go, so it's all right, mate. Don't worry. Yeah.
I've completely thrown myself now.
Well, Killer, been. Oh, sorry, Danny.
No, I just wanted to say, I bet, speaking on behalf of a lot of people listening, that they could listen to you all night long, and but you know what, I won't upset you. You'll just tell me to F off or whatever. But you know what, mate, you are an inspiration, and I think that I just want to commend you because everything that you've been through, and you're still that smile, you're still that comedian, you're still that jokey person. I've had problems, and I'm not as quick and as on the ball as you with some stuff, and the pain that you're in, the other issues that come with it. I just think you're a legend, mate. You really are.
Well, people have said I'm an inspiration. If people want to call me an inspiration, I'm just me. Like I said, if I was giving advice to me myself, don't change. If I meet somebody, the most famous person I've met, Alex Ferguson, I would say. You've met a Sir, I met a Knight of the Realm, and and so many people said, "Yeah, Alec, you're all right. Will you pose for a picture with us?" I met Frankie Dettori at Doncaster Race. I told Frankie Dettori that, "Don't worry, Frankie. There's no pressure on you on this ride, but that bookie over there, if you don't win, I'm in my wheelchair and I'm going to be laid here." That's in the paddock at Doncaster Races. That everybody's the same. You can't be in awe of people. You can't. Everybody. We're all skin and bone. We're all blood. There are a lot of things in the press at the moment about. I won't go into it, but yeah, everybody's life matters. So, but thank you for the nice words, Loz.
Well, I was just about to say we're going to have to wrap it up, but honestly, Killer, been a pleasure. Your stories are literally, I've got a smile on my face. It's made me laugh so much.
You know what? After this, I'm going to phone you all up individually and give you one story for each other.
That sounds a good idea. Well, thank you very much, Killer.
Absolutely no problem. The one thing I will say is, you lot know me, so you know my humour. I just hope that your listeners have enjoyed it and have stuck with it. If they haven't, we've had a laugh doing it. It's past a fair few hours for me, so no problem. Thank you.
And we'll get you back, Killer.
Yeah.
I'm saying this. Lozzie's the boss. He's the.
You're welcome back, mate. Don't worry. Right. Well, it's been a pleasure, and I hope you've enjoyed it. So
it's been. Do you know what? I've to say we've been doing this nearly an hour and a half or what. It's been great. It's been good to reminisce. It's been good to cheer myself up because I've not had a great day. So yeah, it's been good. Spot on. Thank you. To the next chapter.
I think we'll get you back on to discuss rugby league with you, Killer.
Yeah,
because
we'll do that in a few weeks' time.
Every time you ring me to have a rant about various things in the game, you always have me in absolute stitches. So to our listeners, when he comes on to talk about rugby league, you need to listen because it'll be.
Is that because I'm talking shite, or because you think actually, yeah, I'm right?
Oh no, yeah, there's a lot of nails hit on the head, but it's all in your delivery, Paul. You've got a unique way of putting it across, and then they'll see what we mean when you come on. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I won't tell me Gary Etherington story. I'll keep that
definitely
for
don't.
Time.
Right, and we hope you've enjoyed this.
I have. Brilliant. Thank you.
Well, we shall say our good night, and thank you very much, everybody, for listening. We'll see you later. Thank you.